Welcome to the East County Sports Report, brought to you by EastCountySports.com. My name is John Owens, joined by Dave Dickens and Ramon Scott. A really fun week out there. A lot of close games. We'll start with probably the most dramatic game of the week, and that was Valhalla traveling over to West Hills. Valhalla, another tough one. They battled back and forth with the Wolf Pack, and really, it was just a fantastic game. Both defenses did some great things. Offenses made plays, and it all comes down to the last 30 seconds, and West Hills draws up one of the prettiest trick plays you're going to see all season long, and they put a sword right in the heart of Valhalla. Valhalla loses that one, and they're going to have to pick those pieces up because they have another tough one that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So West Hills gets another win, and they're looking awfully strong. And talking about Grossmont and El Cap, you traveled over and watched this game, and Grossmont looked awfully good.
They did. You know, the El Cap actually, believe it or not, though, they held them. It was 16-7 at the half. Mm-hmm. So they did hold them considerably, considering the last time that they played. They went in there it was at Grossmont, and they went in there 6-0, Grossmont did, and they just destroyed from the start, just right out of the gate. But I think El Cap's defense held up for the first half. I just think they got tired, and then they just got manipulated, and they threw in the Chabelle, and he just tore it up from there. I mean, they hit the ground and running, really.
Well, and you saw it in your highlights that you captured that Grossmont just looked like thoroughbreds out there and just powering and fast-paced. Of course, Helix traveling to Steel Canyon. Steel Canyon, kind of the upstart team in the East County, but Helix put the brakes on that.
Well, we were expecting Steel Canyon to maybe be prepared for their best game because all the momentum was favoring them to maybe give Helix a battle in that game. As it turned out, Thomas Fishburne had a concussion late in the Mira Mesa game the previous week. The district, the whole section is taking this very seriously, as is all the levels. You get a concussion, you're probably going to miss the next week. And indeed, Thomas Fishburne was out for that game. Hayden Roach was in at quarterback. Helix really did a number on them. They were expected to win anyways, but it just would have been exciting to see Fishburne out there and what he could do against Helix and try to make it an exciting game for those fans out at Steel Canyon. Helix eventually got the win, 41-7. Wasn't close, but Isaiah Wooden had 3 touchdowns for Helix. We talk about all the other guys they have, and it was Wooden who had 3 touchdowns, including 2 60-yard punt returns.
Wow, that is incredible. And there's a lot of details on EastCountySports.com from some of the games that we're not able to cover. Of course, some great highlights there of Monte Vista and Mount Miguel as well. So we're heading into Week 8. Steel Canyon, we might as well talk about them. They're coming off that tough loss to Helix. And you have West Hills that's got to be riding high. This is a big battle. How are you looking at this game?
Well, the Cougars are favored in this game, despite the fact that they have a 3-3 record, and West Hills has the 5-game winning streak and a 5-1 record. Well, the strength of schedule and just the division that Steel Canyon is in ranks them as the slight favorite in this game. As good as West Hills has been, they need to win this game or a game that would be considered a quote-unquote good win against a team that's better than them. Because right now they're sitting on the bubble, believe it or not, Division II. It's in 12th place. Wow. I mean, that's almost missing the playoffs. So you could lose to a higher ranked team and be okay as long as everything stays in form. But if you can get a win like this, that puts you in the playoffs, really, as long as everything goes according to form the rest of the season. The Cougars have played the toughest schedule in Division II. That's why they're the highest-ranked 3-3 team. I mean, they're almost up getting a bye if they could just come up with some more wins. And I expect Thomas Fishburne to be in that game this week after his sitting out with the concussion protocol. I've got Steel Canyon edging out West Hills in this one by 1 point.
All right. So how are you picking this? Do you think West Hills is going to keep that positive mo going?
I think they do, and I think really what happened, if they would have won that first game, the only game that they look absolutely awful, I'm just going to come out and say it. I mean, they just looked like they weren't ready to play. But with this younger kid coming in there, I mean, just fresh off the bench and out of practice for the camp, I mean, He's looked great, and with that quarterback, I think that it's going to be easily West Hills actually.
Okay, all right, so you're picking West Hills
Absolutely.
big, riding momentum right into Steel Canyon. The next game is a special one, Grossmont at Valhalla. This is a pink out game, both ASBs this week from Valhalla and Grossmont, teaming up to honor those who are fighting breast cancer. It should be a very special game. Of course, it'll be live streamed on OrangeNationTV.com. How are you looking at this one? This is two teams in opposite directions.
Well, the Foothillers are going to be a considerable favorite in this one, so they just really have to stay focused. But I think you have to be impressed with what Valhalla did last week, playing in the back and forth game with West Hills. I mean, they were in that contest. They led the game in the fourth quarter, so I mean, they were right there, had a chance. In fact, they were poised to win the game. It was 4th and 13 when Jordan Young, you talk about how great he is, when he pulled off that 4th and 13 play, got like 26 yards, got him in scoring position, and that set up the spectacular play when Weaver threw it back to Jordan Young on that. But back to Valhalla and Grossmont, Jamie Odom, 350 yards total offense last week, so I think he's really starting to get it going. It was Andrew Lira. I see Andrew. He was the one that had that interception return down the left sideline. A lot of people misidentified that one by the way Andrew wears his shirt, showing those rock hard abs. But that was Andrew Lira. He had the big 41-yard touchdown return down the left sideline last week. So Valhalla improved their offense last week, 230 yards total offense. And so I think that that gives them some hope in this one. But I've still got Grossmont winning this one by 2 touchdowns.
I definitely agree. I mean, with Odom was looking great out there. I mean, for being a sophomore quarterback, he started off pretty rough against Eastlake. I mean, he had a few picks there. And, I mean, he's had no picks in the last 2 games, so I think he's really coming of age. He's really getting to know the offense. And I think he'll do well in the playoffs as well.
So you're picking Grossmont. Both of you picking Grossmont. Probably the easy pick, but once again, you can watch that on Orange Nation TV.
John's going with an upset.
Yeah, well, I always gotta feel that way. We'll see how it turns out. We have Morse 3-3 traveling to Christian 5-1.
Well, everybody's talking about Brad Jeremiah and what he did last week with the section record tying 8 touchdown passes. Just incredible. He's got 30,
like a video game, really.
30 touchdowns now through just 6 games this season. So he's approaching some single season records for touchdown passes. The schedule's starting to get more difficult now. We're playing Morse this week, Lincoln next week. But just one more touchdown and he'll tie the Christian High record for touchdown passes in a season with Daniel Jeremiah. We know how good Daniel was at Christian. Most people know him as the analyst at the NFL Network, but we remember back when he was with the Patriots. This is an important game in terms of Eastern League and Division II playoff seedings. The Patriots have played the weakest of all the Division II teams except for Brawley, who was in last place. So it's very important for Christian to win these games that they're expected to win. Morse won that game. They played an East County team, if you remember, earlier this year, beating Mount Miguel 26-19. They've got Martell Irby, Tim Patrick, we've talked about them. But don't forget about former Helix player. We talk about Helix always getting these transfers. Hey, they lose guys too. AJ Villasane, he's a great player over at Morse, a big play threat for the Tigers. But I've got Christian winning this one by a touchdown.
Dave?
I'm going to say at least 2 touchdowns.
In favor of Christian.
Especially with Jeremiah. He's a machine.
Okay. Santana 3-4, 0-1 in league. Has a chance to try to get that league win, but they're facing a very tough opponent in Monte Vista, who's 3-3, 1-0 in league.
Yeah, well, Monte Vista did a tremendous job last week. 35-0 victory on homecoming, got the shutout win, and that was the big rivalry game with Monte Vista, with Mount Miguel. Last year when these two teams played, it was kind of a big game. It was in Santee. 46-40 was the final score. Now in that game, Josh Odewalt, the quarterback for Santana, he was a junior last year, 385 yards passing in that game and 5 touchdowns. That's really saying something since Josh only has, I believe, 8 touchdown passes this entire season. So you can see where that game kind of went. Last year in that game, there were 6 plays of 50 yards or more. So you could see some explosive offense again this week, even though we know Monte Vista's game is a power game. Santana gave up 400 yards rushing last week. Monte Vista has Jamon McClendon. This is not a positive recipe right now for Santana, but Jamon, he had 258 yards against the Sultans last year. They've got to make that a smaller yardage number. The Sultans have to try to stop him. He had 168 yards in the game against Mount Miguel last week, so he's running strong. Santana, I understand they could get some returning help finally in their backfield because they've got to balance it out. They cannot be one-dimensional against Monte Vista this time around. Monte Vista's playing too strong a defense, so they have to get some running game there. Some common opponents, Monarchs won at Monte Vista, Sultans lost at Monte Vista. I've got Monte Vista by 10 points.
Monte Vista by at least 2 touchdowns.
Okay, and I'll tell you what, a little more positive talk from Monte Vista. I respect their game. I love running game. I know everybody loves passing. We're talking about all that. Watching their highlights each week, them powering the ball, it's a lot of fun. Mount Miguel 2-5 travels to El Cajon Valley.
Well, it's just a shame what happened last week in that big game, the Monte Vista Mount Miguel game. Mount Miguel quarterback Mugabe Miller, he injured his Achilles early in the game, and they were just rendered useless on offense. They really couldn't get anything moving because they were able to bottle up on Shamar Green, and Santino Pacheco wasn't able to do anything, and it was just a one-sided game. He is such an important player, really, and that's going to level the playing field a little bit. The Braves need an opponent that they can compete with. This week, even though we expect Mount Miguel to be the favorite, the Braves are going to have a chance to stay in this game. The changes in philosophy now for the Matadors, we'll see what they do at quarterback, but they're going to have to change things up a little bit. If they have to go to more of a running game, I think that's going to keep the score lower. We know the Braves can run. They just got to get a little bit healthy. Mikael Garner still hasn't had a good game off of his injury. Daryl Davis, all of a sudden, we've talked about him, but they're not using him as much in the passing game because they were using Hullum. They've got some weapons, so I think the Braves can get some yardage. The Braves just had 80 total yards of offense last week. They were down 28-0 early, but battled back, lost 40-20. So the Braves did show some heart. I want to mention Braves senior Omar Mahmoud. He had his first sack of the season last week on that Braves defense. I've got Mount Miguel winning this one by 10.
I got Mount Miguel easily winning it by 2 touchdowns.
Okay, all right. Granite Hills travels out of the East County, and they'll take on Hilltop.
Well, we talk about the transfers out of Helix. Oh, Helix gets all these transfers. How about Kevon Martin? He is the former Helix Highlander who is now at Granite Hills. But you know what? He's really coming home because he played Pop Warner at El Cajon, and he's a great-looking back. He's only a sophomore, and he had 186 yards last week and 2 touchdowns in his varsity debut. So that's just what the Eagles need, right? Another running back to go with Tyler Gonzalez and those guys. So he might be carrying the load right now, and maybe Tyler can do some other things. But Tyler had over 100 yards last week, too, because the Eagles rushed for over 400 yards, as we mentioned, in that 40-10 win over Santana. The Lancers are strong. They're ranked 4th in Division III, ahead of teams from the East County like the Matadors and the Sultans, so I think we can respect the Lancers. It's a familiar opponent for Granite Hills. They've played Hilltop before. Now, this game is going to be played at Southwestern College. So please note that. And the Hilltop Lancers are led by senior running back Jeremiah Rivera, quarterback Daniel McFerrin. I'm going to go with Granite Hills by a touchdown.
Okay.
I'm going to say Granite Hills at least by 3 touchdowns. Just due to the fact that they played that common opponent, how Santana played against them earlier this year, and they beat Santana. So I'm going to say that Granite Hills is easily, unless they just roll over, going to have them.
Okay, all right. Eagles definitely looking strong. We'll see how they do against Hilltop. It's going to be interesting to see how your predictions come out there. El Cap getting another tough draw. Of course, this isn't league. They play Helix.
Yeah, it's been rough for El Cap, but they're still trying hard. Like Dave said, it was a tough game. They played Grossmont great last week in the first half. Just got a little tired covering all those Grossmont guys, but they did a really nice job on defense in the first half. Everybody was talking about it. Where I was, when we saw the score, we're like, wow, great job by El Cap staying in that game. But Helix is going to be a considerable favorite in this one. You know, Helix has been getting such big leads. They've been able to rest Carson Baker, and they've brought on their quarterback in waiting, Delshawn Traylor, and he's scored 4 touchdowns rushing so far. Threw a couple passes last week as he starts to get acclimated because he's going to be the next guy, it looks like, in line for the Highlanders. The El Cap defense is going to have their hands full, obviously. We talked about Isaiah Wooden. He's just the 3rd guy. Sorry, Isaiah. You were ready to bust out, I know, but, you know, when you talk about Rashad Scott, not only on offense, but he's got 8 interceptions already on defense, and Isaac Taylor Stewart. And Fato Noah, he's missed the last 2 games with a broken hand. And, well, they miss him certainly, but they haven't missed a beat without him. Their running game, they're running 3, 4, 5 guys, 5, 6, 7 times each, and they're just getting yardage. So we hope that Elion is able to get back real soon. I got Helix by 5 touchdowns.
Easily 5 touchdowns.
Okay, all right.
I'll tell Ron you said it.
All right.
Sorry, Ron.
Now, Mountain Empire travels out to Holtville, the carrot capital of the world. Little fun fact for you. This will be a tough one for him.
Well, I can't top that one. But Mountain Empire's bus broke down last week on the way to Anza. That sucks. They were 30 minutes late for the game, but when they got there, everything worked out just fine. They won 44-13. Gabriel Hydorn, 2 touchdown passes, 2 rushing touchdowns as well. So, hey, we gave you Dallas Prince at our fantasy spotlight last week, and he fumbled the opening kickoff. And so all of a sudden I was in last place. But then he had a kickoff return for a touchdown and an interception. This week we're going to go with Sawyer Ernsbarger, who had a touchdown, a sack, and a fumble recovery last week. So I like his fantasy chances this week. Holtville, they run pass ratio 5-1. So let's stuff the box. We know what we're expecting. 2 running backs have over 500 yards this season. They've combined for 14 touchdowns. This one doesn't look so close according to computers, but I'm rating it a little bit closer. I've got a Mountain Empire by 3 points.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they did have that problem with the bus, and when I was talking to Coach Rollins, he was explaining that didn't take anything away, but they did spot them 13 points, but then it was all Mountain Empire after that. And then with Hydorn and then with Wyatt, I mean, they've got so many stars on that squad now. And I think they're going to easily beat Holtville this year, which they're typically back and forth on this. It's actually a foreign word. You cannot say their name on the campus. And this is per Bernard Band. Coach Bernard, I want to know, we apologize. It is Bernard. I got it now.
Okay, well, that is a big battle. So
Yeah.
we will not say Holtville again. Okay. All right, so Warner, 1-5, taking on Foothills Christian, 5-2.
Yeah, and Foothills is looking great in their quest for a second consecutive 8-man football championship in San Diego County. Of course, they have their old buddies Calvin standing in their way, but that's at a later time. In the meantime, they're going to take on Warner. The Knights have won 5 straight games now, including a forfeit, but hey, that's a win. And they spoiled Horizon Prep's varsity debut at home last week. Horizon Prep was playing their first ever season of varsity 8-man football, and it was their first home game, and Foothills went in there, and they'll be known as the team that won the first ever game at that location. Daniel Lajoki, he had 2 touchdown runs, Hunter Nickel and INT. The Wildcats of Warner, they scored a season-high 24 points last week. They haven't looked that good, though. They've been outscored 200-36. I've got Foothills Christian by 4 touchdowns.
I'm going to say at least 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
So I'm going to be nice.
All right, there you go. Well, in this edition of Under the Lights, Coach Hutch is talking about the challenges of coaching and players with social media. I'll tell you what, some really interesting insight here and some things to think about when we think about what we post on social media and how we react to players' behavior.
I'm going to talk about something that all coaches are going to have to deal with, and I guess I might have more of a question than an observation. I would love to know what local coaches all throughout the East County are doing in terms of the new technologies in social media, from applications to Facebook to Snapchat, or even Huddle, where you watch film. How do you handle your players and their social media usage? In sports today, from professional sports, guys like Antonio Brown will open up his phone and film in the locker room of the NFL to make money, to colleges where students talk trash from college to college through Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, to high schools where it always happens, where students battle each other online before they battle themselves on the field. I would love to know how coaches are trying to monitor their students or their players' social media usage. Social media and new online apps and technologies are great and useful products for high school coaches, from applications like Huddle, where you can watch game film and chart plays and communicate to your players, and it's easily usable and you can trade film, and that's awesome. But then you also have opportunities for players, students to get online and talk to each other and do things that they're not supposed to do And as schools are coming up with policies on online bullying, I would love to know what coaches are doing to make sure that their players aren't abusing these freedoms that are unregulated online. This last weekend, I was updating and looking at scores on the ScoreStream app, and was very interested to see that people could comment unfiltered online, and there were sometimes comments that were negative to players on the playing field. I find that sometimes somewhat troubling, to be quite honest. Now again, it's awesome to be able to have the ability to get the information live, but that could be problematic if negative things are being said about people's kids and their players. And again, when you look at Twitter, what's out there and the availability for kids to create accounts or say negative things about players on other teams, coaches have to figure out a way to monitor their players' usage. Do they have limitations for their players? Do they tell them they're not supposed to do certain things? I think it's a big question mark. Lucky enough, I don't coach in this day and age. Coaches, if you don't have a social media policy, you might want to think about getting one.
All right, thanks, Hutch. Right here is our preview for Grossmont College's game this weekend.
Gotta suck it up this week, because who's coming to town? Number 1, Fullerton. And they're clicking as good as they've ever clicked. They're 5-0 right now. They won last week 57-0. It's pitched a couple of shutouts already so far. So the defending state champs are coming in. I like them to beat Grossmont, of course, but hey, Grossmont has had some success against them last year. The score was out of control. I don't remember, but it was like 70-30. Something like that. So I've got Fullerton win this game. Get there early if you want to see some exciting football.
Thanks again for watching the East County Sports Report. Of course, more details can be found at eastcountysports.com. We'll see you next week.